Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the pixellab.net. Today I have a tutorial that's going to cover kind of a cool technique that my buddy Chris came up with. He was trying to figure out how to link the sound effector to the displacer deformer so that the displacement actually happens with the beat, with the waveform on an audio track. So let's go ahead and add a MoGraph Effector Sound Effector. And let's go ahead and in our sound file, let's move this over here. In our sound file, let's go ahead and add a track that I have. Let's go ahead and take a listen here. So we have a little bit of a heartbeat and then the music comes in. All right, let's go ahead and add a sphere. And whenever we're doing displacement, it's a good idea to change the type to something like a icosahedron. Then the polygons are spaced evenly. Then a lot of the times the deformation will look a little bit more natural. Let's go ahead and add a few more segments. All right, let's go ahead and put this guy in a displacer. So the way these work is the displacer goes inside the sphere, right? All right, now we need something to displace it. So we're going to use a shader noise. And if you go into the noise, there's tons of different options. If you twirl this guy down, we'll just go with turbulence, something like that. All right, so now if we go to our object, you can see that our strength kind of changes the amount of deformation, and the height also affects it. So let's go ahead and put this to 100. And now comes the tricky part. We have to actually dive into Xpresso to kind of link up this sound waveform to the displacer so that it's displacing based on the wave. All right, so let's go ahead and click on our sphere, right click, go to Cinema 4D tags and Xpresso. So don't get too scared here. This is not going to be too complicated. So we're going to go ahead and drag our sound effector in here. So what we're going to do is click on this red one. This is the output node, and we're going to go ahead and add object. So this is basically going to add something that we can link to another node to kind of process the waveform, right? So let's go ahead and do a new node. Let's go to Motion Graphics, Motion Objects, Sample. And we're going to go ahead and take our object and hook it up to the effector. Now on the other end, we're going to need another node, Xpresso Calculate Range Mapper. So what the range mapper is going to do is take some data and it's going to kind of manipulate it or change it through this range mapper to apply it to another function. So let's go ahead and show you what's going on here. First of all, on the sample, we're going to have to add strength. So we're going to want the sound to go through the sample, through the strength, and then it's going to go onto the range mapper. Sorry, this is a little confusing, but we're getting there. And then the final step is from the range mapper, it has to go to the displacer. So let's drag our displacer in here. And on the displacer, if we hit the input, if you go to object properties, there are all the different options in the displacer. And what we want to focus on is the strength, right? And then all we have to do is drag our output to the strength. And now basically our sound object is going to go through these different nodes and go to affect the strength portion of the displacer. In the range mapper, if you click once, you'll get these options down here. Make sure that these are set to user defined, which they should be by default, right? If you go to parameter, now you can change the output lower and output upper, which basically means kind of the max ceiling that the displacer strength will go to. So maybe just go up to like 20 or 30. We can tweak that in a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens here. So you can see that our sound is... One thing that adds a lot is by going to your sphere and adding a bunch of segments. That's gonna definitely slow things down a lot, but it'll also give you a much smoother look. This is way too much. So if we go to our range mapper again and kind of tone that down a little bit. So anyway, I guess the point is just showing you that you can use Xpresso to link something up with the sound effector to really any parameter. So for instance, if we didn't want to do it with our displacer, but we wanted to do it with our sphere position or something, we could literally just drag in our sphere, go ahead and click on the blue button, coordinates position. And then we can take this output and go to the position here, and then we'll just delete this guy. If we go to our range mapper, we can bump this up a little bit more, and you can see that the position is being affected by this sound. So that's pretty cool. The Xpresso rig is, you know, it takes a little bit of work to kind of figure out what's going on here, but once you understand the principles of it, it's really, really powerful. Okay, I set up the displacer again. I wanted to make one note. The reason I use a displacer deformer is that you can actually see the animation of the noise. You can also do this by adding a new texture, going into displacement and checking that on, and doing noise. And then in noise, we could do the same thing by linking up the displacement in this texture through Xpresso. But the problem with that is, if you put on a texture and you animate it, you can't actually see it. So you have to actually render it in order to see the noise, which is, you know, if you're doing animation or something, it's definitely a problem. And one last thing for you, if you want to animate noise without having it attached to a waveform, it's really easy. All you have to do is go to animation speed, and you can bump that up, and this noise will actually be animating. You're not going to be able to see it very well because you have to render it out in order to see it. But if you right click on this little image and you hit animate and check that, then you'll be able to see kind of a preview of the animation, which is pretty handy. But yeah, I hope that helps you guys. It's a pretty cool technique. Chris did a really good job of figuring this out. Chris has a Pro Actions bundle that he's put together. It's only $8 on Graphic River, so I will put a link to that to check out. He's got some really cool Photoshop actions in here if you're going to do some post work on images. I got some really cool features in here, sharpening, and I actually have this pack and really, really impressed with it. So make sure to check that out. Thanks guys for watching the tutorial. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye everybody.